the Kano when he was granted bail and all of that. I mean, there are 1,001. I'm not in marketing or branding or anything, but even I know a nicer way to have responded, a more professional way to have responded to this. Senator Abaribe, with whatever misconceptions or well, not misconceptions, but whatever reservations we have about our senators, he's still a representative of the people. So when he's making a call, however passionate way or whichever way he framed it, decrying insecurity in the country, you are responding not just to him, you are responding to the Nigerian people because he's speaking as a representative for his constituents. And then you respond with this kind of thing. And the response sort of looks like, when you attack the person as opposed to the argument. So in the response of the presidency, we don't hear anything about insecurity. We're hearing about, oh, the person that passed the message is not as clean as we're talking about. But what about the issue that he has raised? What about the rising insecurity? And his comment comes against the backdrop of the comment by the president that he's surprised at it. So it is enough for a representative of the people to question that comment and to say, so you might have whatever you might have said about, oh, his call, he shouldn't have gone that far, or whatever, his call for the president to resign. There is a big issue of insecurity, and that you have left out.
And the number one person in the country is saying he's surprised at the level of insecurity. So what do you expect the masses to feel? How
exactly. So this is a very, very unprofessional response.
Thank you very much, Funmi. Adenike, we have this next story from New Telegraph. Federal government set to repatriate fresh, I like the sound of that, fresh $325 million Abacha loot. They said they're going to dedicate the sums to the construction of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, Second Niger Bridge, and Kaduna-Kano Expressway. Your thoughts?
Okay, so the report is that
What's funny?
there is a, you know what is funny in the studio? There is a memorandum of understanding between the United States of America and the island of Jersey, as well as Nigeria, and like you rightly mentioned, to repatriate 320 million Abacha loot into the country. 21, yeah, I beg your pardon. Abubakar Malami, who spoke, said that this is in line with the spirit of aggressive recovery of looted assets, which the present administration had been pursuing. They also said that their interest is to trace repatriating assets linked to former governor of Delta State, Chief James Ibori, Desiani Alison Madueke, and one of her business associates, Kola Wole Aluko.
Yes.
Now with, what's his name, James Ibori, they say that the expected amount is about 6 point something million pounds. And they only said in respect of Desiani and Kola Aluko that what they have on ground is only the staff yacht, which they're looking to actualize its sale and then get the proceeds. Now, of concern to me is the fact that we're hearing that they're going to spend these sums on Lagos, Ibadan, Kaduna, and my question is, are we saying that in the 2020 budget, no monies had been earmarked to be spent on these projects? And if I'll be honest, I was lazy to check, but you and I know that. I'm sure that who's Mr. Works. Is this Steve Fasher?
Yes, it is. No, we do have money allocated to capital projects. However, there were still some challenges as to how the money will be raised.
Yes.
The money. So now the question is, would we be able to get from the government, for instance, how much has been spent from the totality, especially under this administration, for these three projects, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, the Second Niger Bridge, and the Kaduna-Kano Expressway. And now what of particular interest to me is where they said that and I'm quoting, the immediate figure for repatriation as it relates to the agreement to be signed next week is $321 million, and the government has indeed given commitment that the proceeds of the looted assets after recovery would be applied to so and so. Is it sufficient for me to have this particular commitment? And I'll leave the answer to the listener.
Okay, thank you very much. I think out these areas. We're going to go through to the next story, and this concerns power. So it's no problem that I'll take this question to Ugo Dre. In terms of,
are you saying that for me and I cannot handle it?
I'm saying he's better positioned to answer the questions. I mean, this is 2020, right? Talking about goals. How close are we to achieving our goals? As power work, electricity workers are issuing a 14-day ultimatum. I didn't sleep with lights last night. So at the expiration of this,
Please move to estates where they have
IPP.
backups
what
and
is,
all that
what,
stuff.
what is the motive behind this 14-day ultimatum?
Yeah, if you guys recall, I think it was late last year or something, sometime last year, we had this strike that basically grounded the entire country because there was a system collapse.
Yes.
They basically just switched off everywhere and there wasn't light. And then it took, I think, almost a day for us to get back on. So what kind of stopped that then was, the Minister of Labour stepped in and then they agreed, one or two things. I think that was December 19th or 11th.
11th.
But what worries me though is, before I get to what the bone of contention, what worries me is, some of the statements that our labor unions make sometimes when they're trying to threaten, right? So you hear things like the union would have commenced a wildcat industrial action on the spot, but if not for the respect that we have for the Speaker of the House. So you hear things like that, and you're like, before you take an industrial action, usually processes, engagement. It's not about on the spot or out of anger or because somebody walked out on you. You know what I mean? Because these things have ripple effects on the economy. So, and this is why sometimes in some countries you see very despotic governments, clamping down seriously on labor. Not even despotic government, even some democratic governments as well are trying to basically just, stifle labor, especially when they're privatizing assets across. And that's because, the other side of having unions is that they can actually be very, very bad for economic growth. And especially when you have, statements like this or career union people. But the bone of contention basically is that they believe that there were a lot of people in, that when the government privatized the power sector, that weren't paid off. Pay their entitlements, and so they've been asking for this entitlement for years. But these are things that they can easily, resolve without having everybody in the economy to suffer for it.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Ugo. We have some comments on WhatsApp. WhatsApp Sean says the unfinishable loot is funding the unfinishable road. And then Opemi Praise says
Nice
professionalism is in the forte of the president's media team. You can see the way they have handled issues. Instead of de-escalating, they take Nigerians with a pinch of salt. They sound like bear parlor banter most times. And then on Twitter we have Alamuto Aziz, Abacha loot again. Will this ever end? And then Zeman is saying first Abacha loot to be directed to feed school children and dash to the poor. Now it is to take care of capital projects that should already be taking care of the budget. Wow. And then Emeka Fumamuwo says for Senator Abaribe, I smell the DSS and EFCC knocking on his door soon.
All right. Okay, so somebody was torn on some person's side, and because of that, I don't know if it's a matter of ego or lack of professionalism, he was sacked or laid off. Now, this was taken to courts. Essentially, what I'm talking about here is published on Premium Times. Court orders reinstatement of Nigerian lecturer after 18 years of termination of appointments. He took this to the National Industrial Court. The person is Ini Ebong. He was unjustly sacked from the university in 2002. They said before he sacked, he had a running battle with Messrs. Ekpo and Effiong, who saw him as a thorn on their side. What are your thoughts on this story, Funmi?
Okay, so this story is very interesting because in recent years we've been having a lot of cases, employment cases that had to do with the reason for my sack was because I criticized, or the reason for my sack was victimization. And it is very interesting because prior to this time, the law that was usually implemented was the courts will now inquire into the reasons that you sack a person as long as you followed the procedure that was stated in the contract of employment. So the law, the court will not necessarily go into was the reason good or was the reason bad, as long as the laid down procedure was followed. But in recent times, the National Industrial Court has been shifting a bit away from that and relying on international conventions. There is a very popular and still very controversial judgment that was delivered in December against EcoBank, a senior officer of EcoBank, who had gone to court to say that the reason I was sacked was because I was exposing some corrupt practices within the bank and all of that. And then, and yet he got judgment. He actually got reinstatement as well. The story mentions another lecturer who had gone to court from the University of Uyo, who had said that the reason I was sacked was because I criticized the VC at the time. We'll wait for these cases to get to the appellate courts. But in recent times, we have been seeing the National Industrial Court relying on international conventions to say that you, the reason, looking into the reasons why you sack employees. So it is very interesting times.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Some comments before
Yes,
we go on to the next story.
Yinka says if there's one good thing about the frequency of national grid breaking down, it's that it has prepared us for electricity worker strikes. What's the difference between them going on strike and the national grid going burst? They can go missing for all they like. Where's the light, sir? I don't even have light now. That's what Yinka said, echoing the thoughts of many Nigerians. Tayo from Yaba says the rate at which the federal government responded to Senator Abaribe is astonishing. If only they are this quick to other major issues concerning Nigeria. Benga Kamu says presidency likes to deflect from the issue at hand. Abaribe spoke about insecurity. He spoke the minds of many Nigerians. And Chika Gina says the call by Senator Abaribe for Buhari to resign is a clarion call that many Nigerians have been echoing. You should have gone further to include no violence.
Yeah, no violence. It's also worthy of note that the Senate also passed a vote of no confidence against the security chief yesterday.
Yes.
And security apparatus.
And they asked for them to be
About time for that one.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. All right, let's move on to our next story here. Adenike, I'll come to you. EFCC investigates Baba Ijebu for alleged tax fraud. This is from the Daily Times. So they were petitioned, the betting company owned by former Ogun State Senator Buhari Kashamu, Western Lotto, petitioned the anti-agency, and this led to this investigation.
The anti-corruption agency.
Anti-corruption agency. Please, Adenike, take us through this story.
Bless you.
Okay, thank you. So, of particular interest to me is the fact that they claim that at least 5 billion naira in revenue losses has been identified against the government since this investigation began, directly blaming the management for allegedly shortchanging Nigerians. For people who do not know, they had started the business long before 2001. Interestingly enough, I'd read an article a few days before today, and that article was talking about how many people had been running businesses before the official registration and what impact that has had on the Nigerian government in terms of taxes and all of that. And by 2005, Obasanjo then started this commission to try to create structures with sports betting, as the case may be. So all of that was put in place. Now, Buju Kashamu's company, the story is that they have filed this report to the EFCC. Now, what is of particular interest to me is the fact that the EFCC, the story now that the EFCC hasn't filed officially any charges against the Premier Lotto.
Yes.
And it is, however, speculated that the probe might be expanded to include other betting companies and investigate claims of sharp practices and how some firms allegedly withhold funds from winning customers. If we have a structure that has been set up by the government to oversee sports betting administration in Nigeria, then I wonder why people do not have the free will to walk into the offices or write formal complaints to say, I want so and so, and my money has not been paid. So I really would implore the government to look into it. I am not one who's going to sit here and say, oh, ban sports betting, we're just going to keep fooling ourselves. Last year, I remember reading a tweet about a guy who said he had spent 2.something million naira, and guess how much he made? 23.4 million naira.
Imagine that.
On sports betting. Don't ask me if he's addicted, but the point is there are many people who it will continue to be a divide on whether it should continue, shouldn't continue, lazy youth, it's helping people, blah, blah, blah. But the question is, I want the government, if we decide that this is what we want to continue to happen here, do your job. And I don't want both Baba Ijebu, Kesinti Adeputu, and Buju Kashamu to use Nigerians and Nigeria as a pawn. I don't. Let the EFCC do what it is about. Let them continue to fight their battles personally and whatever it is.
But beyond EFCC weighing in on this matter, isn't there a regulatory body? Isn't it a regulatory
there is the National Sports Lottery something commission.
Yeah, but isn't this a direct reflection of their inability to control the sector that's
they are working? That's why
you have a petition.
This thing has has gone to EFCC.
Yes,
So let's just assume that they reported to them. They now forwarded the report to EFCC. So
all right.
But contrary to the reports, I know you find it quite funny. But contrary to the reports that we've been getting from different media houses,
Yeah.
the Adebutu family
Yeah.
released a statement saying that there was no arrest that was made. The
Oh, yeah,
FCC
that-
requested for
it was just
clarification on some documents, and
exactly,
they
and
submitted
they
such
came.
documents to the
So
FCC.
the initial report was that one of his sons, was in
arrested.
custody, and no,
Well, that was
we
false.
showed up and then
All right.
questioning. So yeah,
But
Thank you very
does
much.
EFCC arrest though?
no,
They detain.
they detain you.
call you.
for
People don't say
questioning.
arrest detain.
They
Yeah,
invite you. So I mean, those clickbaits.
They
are
don't
doing it,
have
I guess.
EFCC don't have power to arrest. If they arrested a family member, run to court.
All right. Thank you very much,
Barrister
Barrister Adenike. We move on to our next story. This one is about, we're talking about arrest and detaining and coming for you. 6.5 trillion naira or 4.5 trillion naira debt. AMCON devises new recovery measure. New Telegraph reports this. The Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria surveillance have a fresh legal battle to face this year, and they are going tough on those who are owing, banks 4.5 trillion naira, hoping to recover all. I'll come to you, Ugo, for this.
Yeah, one interesting part in this story was, this sentence. AMCON has resolved to criminalize debt cases with links to insider abuse as a means to fast track recovery. An insider source told me. I'm like, well, insider abuse. Why is an insider telling them? Can't you just release a press statement or something? Why is an insider? What's the Anyway, but backstory. Last year there was this committee that the vice president set up to deal with AMCON related debt issues, and that also led to amendment of the law giving AMCON the powers to survey bank accounts of debtors. And then there's always this thing we've always heard: 20 people who 60% or so of total AMCON debts, and so beyond just going after their companies, they want to also go after their personal assets. But see, to me, this is just all blowing hot and cold and just making noise. And I think I might be wrong, but I kind of feel this is just AMCON continuing to seek relevance and continuing to just want to be there and continue to enjoy taxpayers' money, because quite frankly, or maybe continue to collect their fees from banks and sustain. They haven't actually done anything tangible with this asset. So you have 4.5 trillion or so that you haven't been able to collect for almost a decade now, if not close to all. And then this money is actually being owed to the CBN. CBN is actually the ones that issue a lot of the bonds, so or the bottle of the bonds. So my concern is, I don't think the route AMCON is going to work, because usually they want to criminalize debts, basically, and that has ramifications. Debt owing is not a criminal offense. Do you understand? Yeah, that you can't pay your debt is not a criminal offense. There are ways that you can collect go for your recovery, but you cannot kill someone, you cannot jail me for not being able to pay you. You know what I mean? So, but they're trying to criminalize it and trying to bring in this insider trading or whatever. But for me, I think there's got to be a different solution to this AMCON issue. Maybe repackage all these debts, repackage these companies, sell them to people who can run them, maybe private investors, and have them list on the stock exchange. There's just got to be something that you can do. All these going after debtors, it can't work.
So are you saying that? So when you talk about, I know currently owing is not a criminal offense, but are there some aspects to it where they're trying to pursue? So what they're saying is that the way that some of these debtors obtain the loans or obtain these facilities are a bit dubious, or is quite dubious, and so they're looking at investigating that and then bringing them to book and finding a way to criminalize, giving more powers by the Amendment Act of 2019.
Okay, Ayo, so you can get creative about the way you can stretch anything. The problem behind this is when you're going with the mindset of I'm looking for a criminal case in this thing, there's this tendency to stretch and abuse it. Yes, there may be elements of crime in it, but the purpose of it should be to punish the crime. But when you're looking at debtors and you're looking to deliberately criminalize in a manner that would aid recovery, they're not looking for it to punish them. They're looking for it to aid recovery. So you arrest them, make them pour out whatever personal loot they have, and then withdraw the case. That's what typically Nigerians like to do. So it is the aim behind it. There's a tendency to stretch and become overly creative when the purpose behind it is to recover as opposed to punish the crime.
All right.
I know the irony, they know these people, they're their friends. They all eat and dine together.
Yeah.
So please.
All right, we look forward to AMCON being stronger and working even harder in 2020, despite Ugo's reservations about their extent in power, their improved powers. All right, I'll come to you, Adenike, for the next story. Nigeria may lose 2 million children to pneumonia, UNICEF warns. This is according to a This Day report. Now, did you know that last year, pneumonia killed one child every 3 minutes in Nigeria? Shocking facts there. Please take us to the story, Adenike.
Okay, so they have warned us again that malnutrition, air pollution, lack of access to vaccines and antibiotics are the things that would help prevent and reduce drastically the number of deaths owing to pneumonia. Like Ayo said, a child every 3 minutes, I beg your pardon, died in Nigeria. The communications expert said that the body was boosting efforts to fight pneumonia, which could avert over 2 million child deaths. And this was because their forecast is about 1.4 million children under the age of 5 could die from pneumonia in the next decade. And as you already know, the agnes in decade, have you seen in the old decade, whatever, next 10 years, 1.4 million children. And my question is, what is it that we are doing? Nutrition, increasing vaccine, boosting breastfeeding rates. These are, factors that may help reduce the risk of children dying from pneumonia. And by 2030, the effect will be that, the intervention by pneumonia alone could have averted over almost 2 million deaths if we act now. Pneumonia, for those who do not know, is caused by bacteria, viruses, or fungi, and not when your mother is saying AC, 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 and leaves children fighting for breath as their lungs are filled with pulse and fluid. The disease is the leading killer of children in Nigeria, causing 19% of under 5-year-old deaths. So there's a lot more we can do.
Yes.
Again, bacteria, viruses, or fungi, not by AC or drinking cold water. Stay informed.
So which means one of the major problems is sensitization, right information.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And what we fail to realize is that we continue to pass along this circle of misinformation.
Yes.
Your mother passes you because your mother passes you. You have a 5-year-old and you're lying to the child, oh, the AC. No, that's
Doesn't mean
wrong.
that when you turn off the AC, you turn
So,
off the pneumonia.
yes, and also exposure. So once a child has contracted pneumonia, exposure to cold can actually aggravate the
You will
symptoms.
just make it worse for you because you're already fighting, trying to breathe and all of that. So yeah, too much of everything is or anything isn't good.
All right. Chika again has the call by Senator Abaribe for Buhari to resign is a clarion call that every well-meaning Nigerians be echoing. Ejike says it makes absolutely no sense to me to use $321 million Abacha for the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway and the Nigerian Bridge or the second Niger Bridge and Kano-Kaduna Expressway as well. Infinite money for infinite projects, he said. Dominion from Lekki, thank you very much for your message. Tyra says FRS and Sporting Commission is looking at EFCC doing its job, or are you doing this Sarah Kensington matter turn by turn? Interesting.
All right, thank you very much. Move on to our next story, still on health, and again another warning from the government. Government warns against traveling to China as coronavirus spreads, from the Guardian newspaper. Ugo, when I saw and read the story, the first question I asked myself was, will Nigerians listen? Will we stop traveling to China based on this travel advisory? Knowing that the coronavirus has spread beyond. I read cases of coronavirus found in United Arab Emirates. We know we love Dubai. We know we love traveling to these destinations on holiday. Please take us to the story.
Yeah, it's very scary. I was reading the Bloomberg article this morning. There are, I think, 170 or so confirmed deaths, and WHO is now, meeting to decide whether to now, to call this a worldwide alarm, which they were criticized for not calling it last week. It's spreading fast, and that's because China is really a hub. So everybody goes to China to do business. So Nigerians that have already, had several commitments to go to China, and now this week it's tough for them to decide not to go. So people are like, look, this is business related, business meetings and blah blah. But you know what? A lot of airlines are also calling off, flights to China. I think British Airways did the same yesterday or 2 days ago. So you kind of support what the government is trying to do.
True.
The best they can do is warn you not to go to China. They can't stop you from moving, except maybe the airlines refuse to fly there. And then those that are coming in as well. I read at least in the news that a lot of checks have been done at the airport, just to ensure that we are safe. Please note that even recently 3 people that were evacuated from China to Japan, they confirmed that they actually had that virus. So it's a big deal, and we don't want anything like that spreading in Nigeria.
And it's beyond traveling to China. So let's not just assume that it's only those traveling in from China that we need to be, watchful of. In the other parts of the world where it's spread, just a contact, with someone who has the.
They don't even know. What interests me the most is one interesting story about this tour guide, the driver. He had never been there, but unfortunately, he had carried residents that had come from Wuhan in China, and nobody suspected that he would get it. Now, I read a tweet where a Nigerian reached out to Adenike Oyetunde and was saying that what is the Nigerian government doing, because there are Nigerians living in Wuhan and they need to be evacuated. And I feel like that's a conversation we must have. Do we bring them back? Where are we bringing them to? Do we just let them stay where you are? Even the countries, what
they basically shut down the city anyway.
Yeah, so they shut down. So how do you want to get that? Because I want people to understand that, like Ugo was saying, almost on your streets, I wish you knew the number of people that go to China for transactions.
Thank you very much.
We have a message from Lufemi. He said commercial banks have been criminalizing debts for ages. They review the customer's accounts, and it has if you have ever used a dot check, they're charging for issuing dot checks and use it as a pressure point. Ace from Magol says, please repeat that bacteria thing that causes pneumonia. I need to record and send it to my wife because my children talk about heat, but she won't allow AC or fan. Good morning. I'll start the recorder once you read this message, and please say it again.
Okay, so pneumonia is actually caused by bacteria, viruses, or fungi, and not by
AC.
Just make sure that you don't overexpose these children.
Take her to YouTube and let her watch live, because she can then see Adenike reading it. So in case she thinks you doctored the voice as well.
You'll be talking like pneumonia has regulator. Okay.
All right, thank you so much. Unfortunately, that's all we can take. Just a notable mention that IG Southwest governors to meet, reps plan Amotekun law. So still on that, maybe we should do a mini series on Amotekun.
I know, right? And Riwan from Lekki makes a valid point. It says, what about the Chinese coming back to Nigeria? As we all know that some of them are business owners here. They are returning exactly after the holidays. It's the Nigerian government needs to put things in place for proper checks. Coronavirus is not a joke.
Absolutely.
And just to say that they've stepped up on measures, screening measures at the airports. I know that the quarantine agencies.
It's only blood tests that can determine this thing. Or that thermometer.
Yeah. Also, please visit Instagram page at Smooth981. We've put up a post just giving you the symptoms of coronavirus. We all should be on the lookout as well, because we're each other's. Because you could be working with someone who exhibits these symptoms, so you can easily identify. All right, Lagos, thank you so much indeed for being a part of the conversation. A big thanks to our analysts for today, Adenike Oyetunde on Twitter, Funmi Odude at Funmi Odude on Twitter, and Ugo Dre at Ugo Dre on Twitter. Find us at Smooth 981 FM. In a few minutes, we'll be in for the Grapevine 981. We have a special guest, so please stay tuned here on Smooth 98.1.
Who is the special guest?
Ayo, something.
Thank you.
Your Twitter handles are so easy and sweet. Not something.
Mr. C.
I'll send it to you.
You guys should do an Amotekun mini, well, not mini series.
Okay.